I'll climb off my soapbox now. Open it up to questions. Yes, sir.
Is there enough resources for everybody? Because it's like they say that, well, we don't have enough to fund 12 million people for Medicare and all this stuff. Do we really have enough resources, or is it like you said, we don't want different people?
Did everybody hear the question? Is there enough resources to take care of 12 million people? The issue is, I'm going to push it right back to you. The issue is most of those 12 million people are working and are taking care of themselves. It's a fallacy that they're on welfare. You can't be on welfare and have a job at the same time. Okay? And that's also, that's part of the issue. We're not taking care of them. They're taking care of themselves. What happens is in states like Alabama, where let's say, mom and dad have, mom's here illegally, dad's here with papers, and they've got 3 kids, and 3 kids are in school. Okay? Dad goes off to work, he's got probably 2 jobs, and mom probably has 1 while the kids are in school. Mom gets picked up. Mom gets stopped at a stop for running a stoplight or whatever. She gets pulled in, taken in, she doesn't have documentation. She gets put on a bus. Okay, I'm making the story short. She gets put on the bus. Now dad, he comes home from work, where are the kids? They're still at school because nobody's gone to pick them up. Okay? So mom gets deported. Dad now has to quit one of his jobs because he has to stay home in the afternoons to take care of his kids. Now he's going to apply for welfare, where a week before they were a self-sustaining family. So there are enough resources because these people are working. They're not taking, it's a fallacy that they're taking, that they're on welfare and Medicaid and all this type of stuff. They're actually paying into the system and not getting anything back. A lot of the people that are here without documentation, if they have a job, somebody, the state and federal income tax is getting taken out of their paycheck. It's going somewhere. But that's something that they're never going to get. They're not going to get that back.
Sir. Yes, sir. You mentioned Rosa Parks and that situation that happened back at the birth of the Civil Rights Movement. It took the Civil Rights Movement in order to change those laws that we now look back as being unjust. How hard would it be to have federal reform now? What would it take to set that into motion? And why isn't it?
President Bush actually tried 3 different times. McCain and Senator Kennedy tried 3 different times during Bush's term of office. Okay, you have to. I think, and again, this is my own opinion. You follow the money. Right now, there are 3 major companies in the United States that build for-profit detention centers, not prisons. They're detention centers that hold people who are in the process of being deported. They, from 2005 to 2010, their money doubled. They now get, from the federal government, subsidies to the tune of $2.5 billion a year. It's a lot of money. And these people are also behind the scenes lobbying various states to pass these types of laws. Unfortunately for the Latino population, there isn't one voice. Martin Luther King was the one voice, and had several people around him that helped the civil rights movement move forward. Correct. The Latino population doesn't have that one voice, and I'm gonna step out on a wire here. Part of that is because the Latino population comes from various countries, right? I lived in New York for a long time. And I went out with a Puerto Rican girl. Don't ever confuse a Puerto Rican girl with a Dominican girl. Big mistake, right? But there's the Cubans and the Dominicans, the Hondurans. They all have their culture, okay? And so because of that, I believe there's not one push. I think it's starting to change. I think that's starting to turn now. But I think that's the answer, is that there hasn't been one voice standing up. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, do you know what Chris Kobach has planned for Kansas?
Is that a rhetorical question? No. I don't know what he's got, what Chris Kobach has planned for Kansas. I know he travels the country at the tune of $300 an hour plus expenses to help draft these laws. He's in what's his title now? He's Secretary of State. So I mean, he's making his way up. I wouldn't be surprised in the next few years if he's not governor. Don't be surprised. But that's if and that get out and vote. I mean, if there's something that you don't like happening in your government, you have the opportunity to vote. Get out and vote. Whether it be immigration issue, whether it be whatever your passion is. This law, 1804 in Oklahoma, was passed because Carol Helm and 11 of her closest friends basically every day walked the Capitol. And in Oklahoma is not a border state. Oklahoma at the time had one of the smallest Latino populations in the country. Alabama only has roughly 184,000 Latinos living in the country, yet now they have the strictest anti-immigration law. Again, that just blows my mind. I don't understand that. Anyway, the point being is that you have representatives. Oklahoma, Shane Jett, the Republican from that voted no or walked out in protest, when he gets 3 letters from his constituents on a bill, 3, he votes that direction because he figures if 3 people wrote to him, that must be what his people want in his district. 3, okay. If we look on a federal level, thousands of letters go in, millions, whatever. So Kansas, I gotta believe, is the same type of thing. Is that if enough people in this room wrote a letter based on a bill, right, to say vote yes or no, your representative has to listen. That's his job or her job. And I ask this question a lot: is how many representatives do each of you have? I have 3. And this is how I break it down: where I live, where my office is, and where my mother-in-law lives. Okay? And I'll tell you why. And I don't lie. From my home, dear Mr. or Mrs. Representative, I live in your House district. I would really appreciate it if you voted for white carnations. I love white carnations. Okay? Pick whatever your topic is, right? Dear Mr. or Mrs. Representative, I work in your House district. And I was talking with my employees, and we were wondering if there was going to be a stop sign at this, corner, blah, 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 blah. Right? Dear Mr. or Mrs. Representative, my mother-in-law lives in your House district. We were talking with her church group, and we would really like you to vote this way on a bill. Now you've written 3 letters, but to 3 different representatives. All 3 of those representatives now are going to pay attention to that letter. The other thing is even if you're not voting in their House district, they're still your representative. They're still that constituency for that particular district. So when you think about it, you have a loud voice. And again, I think you should utilize it. You have a question back there?
Yeah, we hear a lot about the states who are, imposing these strict laws and these kind of harsh, in my mind, harsh ideas. Are there states that are taking a more enlightened approach?
Are there states that are taking a more enlightened approach to the immigration laws? California, Governor Jerry Brown just signed last week the DREAM Act for California that allows undocumented students to apply for in-state tuition. It also will allow them to apply for state-sponsored grants. So there are states that aren't as harsh. Utah, I screened this film last year in Utah. They just signed, I think it was at the beginning of the summer, they had 2 bills that passed that were diametrically opposed to one another. One was similar to Alabama's. One was allowing a state-sponsored ID card. And it was funny because the opponents of the ID card said, "Oh, that's unconstitutional." But yet they were the same people that voted to kick people out. And the people that voted for the state ID card said, "Well, kicking people out is unconstitutional." So basically, it became like a stalemate. And I think both bills are in court. So there are some states. I think that where you see the New York is another one that's kind of staying under the radar. New Jersey as well, because they understand that without the workforce, Las Vegas, Nevada is another one too. Without the workforce, their industries are dead.
Question over here. I'm from Southern California, and they were mentioning about the farmers and stuff. Down there we have what's called day laborers, and they pick you up and you work for like $85 a day, get your cash, and you go on that. Me, you know, I have to take my $85, I have to pay insurance, all this kind of stuff. On the other hand, my homeboy, you know, Pablo, he gets to go down to Tijuana, and his dollars go forever. We happen to get in a car, at the light, we all, you know, bump bumpers and stuff. I'm waiting for the cops to come because I have to do my insurance thing. But him, he gets out of line, goes down to the border, he has nothing happens to him. You know what I'm saying? And that's a lot of dollars, man. You know what I'm saying? And my $85 doesn't hardly do anything compared to his. What's up with that?
I don't have an answer. I don't know. What is up with that? We need, again, reform. Federal reform would help answer some of those questions, would help make people responsible. Again, it's one of those things that needs to be addressed. You're right. It does need to be addressed. But thanks to Pablo, I don't have to pay, $8 for strawberries either. I mean, let's be honest. We have to be honest with ourselves when we're talking about people that come here and work for that amount of money. We don't want to pay $10 for a Big Mac at McDonald's. That's what'll happen if we don't have people that are willing to make that drive and make that job happen. You had a question right here? No.
It's not everybody. I had a friend, very close friend, when I lived in Virginia. She came from Peru, and she came legally, but then she let her passport expire. She has been paying taxes all the 10 years she has been here, until today. And she pays insurance for her car, she pays everything. My question is, why does the government take her taxes if she is still undocumented? Why don't they keep her? She says, I keep paying taxes because I hope that someday I will get a document. So it's not, the topic was brought up that illegal immigrants don't pay taxes or anything. That's not everybody.
It's not true, right?
There is a large amount of immigrants who do pay taxes and pay insurance and pay medical insurance as well. So my question is, why do they take their money then?
Why does the government take the taxes? And right. Sure. No, I understand. There's an attorney that appears in the film. His name is Stephen Langer, and he's originally from Arkansas. He tells his clients when they start to apply for status, start paying taxes. If you've been here 5 years, get a tax attorney, get an accountant, and go back and figure out how much taxes you owe, and start paying. The reason why he tells them to do this is because a lot of judges on the bench, they want to know that you really want to be here. They want to know that if you trekked all the way from Peru or Honduras, that you rode on the back of a train, and women fearing rape and men fearing the bandits, you got all the way up here. You came here because you wanted a better life, and this is the way to start it. That's part of America. We have to pay taxes. What he tells his people to do, his clients, start paying the taxes so that way the judge sees that you're willing to pay your fair share. That might be the same thing. I don't know if that's the answer, but I do know that that's what a prominent immigration attorney in Oklahoma, that's how he gets people to get started.
Yeah, my point is that, the guy who is from the IRON, the business owner,
Right.
He said that the Americans don't have the same financial burden that the illegal immigrants have.
Ignorance. They do, absolutely. No, he showed his ignorance when he says that, and that's one of the reasons why I put him in the film. I've gotten hammered because I show too much racism, or I show, hey, you give a person enough rope, you hang themselves, and I felt as a filmmaker, I needed to show what people from the Latino heritage are up against. These are the people that you're up against. This is the ignorance that you're up against. The woman who runs Iron, I mean, really, the people didn't come here to create their own rule of law. I was blown away that this woman said that. What's the Constitution? You know? So, you know, my film crew, my assistants, she came up to me, we were changing tape. She's like, do you want to correct that? I said, no, that's gold. She really believes that. She doesn't understand that people came here to create their own rule of law, to create their own country. That's the ignorance. And it's unfortunate, but that's what's out there. And those are the type of people that are writing to their representatives and are getting these types of laws passed. And that needs to change. I'm going to actually, I'm going to back up. There's a person ahead of you. Sir, back there in the back.
I wanted to ask you, what would you recommend to us to help the Latinos do what we need to do to keep them in this country?
Again, I think one of the biggest things you can do is to write your representative or call your representative. I know in Oklahoma they have you can actually meet with your representative. Give a call and say, hey, listen, I'm one of your constituents. I'd like to sit down and can we have coffee? Meet at a Starbucks, meet at a coffee house, and sit across from your representative and tell them how you feel. Do so in a tactful way. Do so in an intelligent way, right? But then it doesn't just become a letter. It becomes, I'm meeting with John. John has an issue. John is one of my constituents. He has an issue with what we're doing to Latino families. And now it becomes a one-on-one. And even if you're here without documentation, you still live in that person's house district. You don't have to vote. You can still voice your opinion. Again, that's the beauty of this country. You can still voice that opinion. So that's what short of, I don't know that protests work. I don't know that does anything anymore, right? I think it shows solidarity, but I think the bigger issue is communication with your representative. And have the facts. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to ask you, and I'm a senior hair legislator, and I work with a lot of senior citizens who are over 60 years of age, who have a wealth of health problems. What is the best way to obtain some of the same things that they need for the Latinos and the Mexican Americans, as well as the people that are born here who have the red, white, and blue card to start with? Because this is very, very, it's probably prejudice or racial, but they take out $96.40 out of my Social Security check every month for the last 20 years. I'm telling my age now. But and they don't take anything out of their check because they came here illegal. So on the health side, and they are the most unhealthy, what do you suggest to us to help us? Because they are draining that system, because they gonna have to get the medicine some kind of way, and right now they do it through the clinics. But the Catholic Church here is supporting predominantly those clinics.
So how is it taking your money if the Catholic Church is supporting those clinics? That's not your money. So you're paying your taxes and you're donating when you go to church.
You're doing it all.
Right.
And I'm saying, if you've been here that long, or is it some kind of way that we can do? You said if you start when the younger kids, I can kind of go along with them because they will move towards that. But I think if you want to stay here, then when you get here, you need to start towards as citizenship, because you are going to get old here, and then it's too late.
Right. Well, the unfortunate thing is that the people without documentation, they are paying taxes. If they're getting a paycheck, and it's a legitimate paycheck, they're getting FICA taken out, they're getting Medicare taken out. I don't know healthcare issues. That's not what I'm here about. I'm sorry. That I can't answer. I don't know. Yes, sir.
They don't have no job.
Yes, I grew up in South Texas, so I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm saying. We went to a wonderful school where in '54 we all went together after Brown versus Board. It was a wonderful place. Here's my question. There are many countries in the world that have as stiff, if not stiffer, immigration laws than we do. Many Asian countries, Europe. I want you to compare Mexico's and Canada's to ours.
Mexico's immigration law is extremely strict, right, and Canada's too, and so is Canada. I think the difference is that America from its beginning has been a melting pot. And I'd use the melting pot. I'm going to change that. It's a mosaic, right? I think, and I'll answer your question. I'm going to dance around it first, and I'll answer it. Okay, it's a mosaic. I mean, if you look at it from far away, it's just this beautiful image of these multicolored map. When you get close to it, it's different colors of glass, right? And it makes up who we are as a nation. Okay. We wouldn't have kindergarten if it wasn't for Germans. We wouldn't have Mother's Day if it wasn't for Greeks. We wouldn't have Valentine's Day if it wasn't for Italians and the Romans. We are who we are because we've allowed immigration. Okay? Canada doesn't have the workforce that we have. Canada imports a lot of what they need. England imports a lot of what they need. France and Germany, they're going through huge hiccups right now with immigration. France treats the Turkish and a lot of the Arab nations the way that we're treating Latinos. They've never had an influx of immigration like we have. I think we're better than that because we have had over 200 plus years of immigration. That's why there's a difference. Because we wanted to be the country where people came to. I mean, it says on the Statue of Liberty, you know, bring me your poor, et cetera, et cetera. Now it says, but you know, we refuse to serve. You know, we have the right to refuse service. You know, which is why, again, I think that there needs to be a comprehensive federal reform on immigration. It needs to be addressed.
Does that answer your question? All right. Yeah. Sorry.
How do we get everyone documented and pay them a fair wage and still avoid what you're talking about, the inflation of the cost of farm goods? How can that all happen? What would be a way to do that?
Again, I think I'm going to agree with Henry Cisneros in that President Bush, I think, had the right idea. Secure the borders, guest worker program. I don't necessarily believe in amnesty to a certain degree. I think that there needs to be some sort of, I don't want to call it a punishment, but if you came here illegally, there's got to be some retribution you got to pay back, right? And whether that be you're on a 5-year waiting list before you get the card, you know, I don't know what that answer is, but I think that's the beginning of it. I think that's where it needs to start. The fallacy that's going on right now, the misinformation that's going on right now is that the borders are not secure, and that's just not true. You talk to any Border Patrol agent, Border Patrol agents are bored stiff right now, depending on where they are on the line, because the border is secure. And they say the federal government isn't doing enough. President Obama is on target to deport more than 1 million people by the end of this year. He will have deported more people in 3 years than President Bush deported in 8 years, 2 terms. So again, is the federal government doing enough? I think again the reform has to happen, right? But it is a big problem, and it's growing bigger every day. But I don't think the answer is state laws that send people that break apart families and send people packing and create fear. I just don't think that's the answer.
I'll go right here. I'll come back. Yeah, this is a wonderful documentary, and I thank you for it. I think the whole nation needs to see it. How do we view the whole thing? How do we, is it out there for sale, or what's the deal with that?
The question is, how do we see the whole documentary? And I appreciate you saying that the whole United States needs to see it. I do have copies with me. I brought copies with me. You can also buy them online at panicnationmovie.com. panicnationmovie.com. And I do have the DVD. The DVD also has an extra bonus disc that has another 90 minutes worth of other topics. We talk about the economy. We talk about how schools were affected. One of the things that Randy Terrell wanted to do was he wanted to create a school ID system, which was also shot down. But anyway, so there it is available. If you want to hang out afterwards, I can and get you a copy. And I'll come back over here and then back there.
Have we collaborated with their head of state at all and said, hey man, let us assist you in helping take care of these people? It's not like they're in Sudan or some of these countries that don't have any resources or dried out. You know, they're forced to have a fertile land down there. I mean, have we collaborated with them to let us help you?
Have we collaborated on certain levels? Yeah, but I think that the sovereignty of each nation, there's some big egos involved, and for us to say, let us help you help your own people, that'd be a little rough. I mean, can you imagine if Canada came down and said, let us help you help your people? There's some big egos involved. There are, again, just as long as the United States has been here, Mexico's been there too, and they've got their people and their issues, and yeah, I think it's bigger than just that. Back there in the back, ma'am.
Yes, I wanted to mention that one issue that hasn't made it into the discussion is the fact that most immigrants move from their countries without wanting to. They are forced to move from their countries for one reason or another. And I think in that regard, we have to look at some of the things that have happened in the last, when immigration really picked up recently, regarding agricultural policies and other policies vis-a-vis Mexico and Central America and South America, from the point of view of the United States. The whole NAFTA and all of that, a lot of the agriculture in Mexico has been destroyed because of those policies. And so the immigrants, again, don't move from their country. They don't wake up one day and say, geez, I want to go somewhere else. Right. Mostly that doesn't happen anymore. They want to stay where they are, but they can't, right, because of some of these policies that have been put in place.
Right. As one of the people in the film says, we've created this. We have 2 signs on the border: keep out and help wanted. So, but you're right. I mean, and as big as everything, it seems, has become global. And we need to understand that what we do here, what we purchase here, affects people in other countries as well, manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think there also needs to be some empathy for people that need to come here for opportunity. They can stand on one side of the border where they're making $6 a day if they're lucky to have a job. $6 a day, or they can be doing a similar job across the border for $10 an hour. So if I've got to feed my family, again, I got to empathize with that. I understand that. I was lucky to be born on this side, but as a human being, I have to have empathy for someone who has a wife and kids and is doing anything and everything they can to support that. And if that means crossing a border where I can make $10 an hour, I can work for a day to feed my family on this side of on the south side of the border. Maybe I'll feed my family for a day. But I can work that same day, those same hours on the other side of the border and make enough to feed my family for a week. What would you do? And I think that's the humanity of it, Barbara, how are we on time? Okay, 5 minutes. Yes, ma'am.
I don't want to downplay the importance of communicating with our representatives, but I think the reality right now is in a lot of these states, the legislatures are very conservative. And I think until either some of these businesses what's going on in Alabama, until it starts hitting some of these businesses in their pocketbook, or until things go back to evening out a little bit between liberal and conservative, that it's going to take a lot more than contacting a representative who may have no clout whatsoever in a state legislature that is all one party.
Well, they can vote no. Shane Jett was a Republican and he voted no. He stood up against his own party, so it can happen. What would you suggest?
I wish I knew. I guess I'm being realistic in that in the present climate, moderates on either side are kind of in small numbers, and I do think we need to to support moderate representatives. And I guess I'm thinking not, more of Kansas right now, certainly.
Right.
But some of these other states, there's a lot of money behind some of these. In North Carolina, you have that multi-billionaire who essentially purchased most of the representatives, and then you're going to get into redistricting, which can also affect the immigration issue. So I know I think it's going to take some time and some pushback.
Well,
Whether it's Occupy Wall Street, but there really does need to be some
Right.
pushback so that those voices really are.
Well, Alabama Latinos did one thing. I mean, they walked out. They took a day off, and that affected the economy. Three meatpacking plants had to shut down. That affects the pocketbook.
That may, the more that happens, the more businesses and business leaders and representatives may sit up and take notice.
Right. And it's not small numbers can also be deceiving. The Latino voice is 54 million people strong. If the Latinos had one voice, I mean that's a loud voice, people. That's a loud voice. Probably in my lifetime, I'm going to be a minority. That's just a fact. And people like me, or I'm not going to compare myself to Ron Damp, but people like Ron and people like Carol Helm are afraid. And this is the reaction to fear. They're afraid too.
Are you thoroughly convinced you have to have that one, you said that twice, both to me and to, so you always think that you have to have one person as your leader?
No, I don't think there has to be one person as one leader. No, we were comparing why this has been different, say, than the civil rights movement. And I think the civil rights movement, I think there was arguably one louder voice. I mean, certainly, and I'm not an expert on it, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but I know that Martin Luther King was a pretty loud voice, and he had a lot of people listening to him, and he got people to change, right? I don't see, and Latinos in the room, help me out here, I don't see that happening yet, because there isn't a cohesive voice yet, and I think that's what's been missing. And I think, and it's a different. In the people that I've come in contact with, I think it's also has to do with the Latino culture. Latino culture is very much, kind of keep quiet, don't make a big noise, right? Say a couple of novenas, maybe things will change. Especially, I think, for the older generation. Younger generation, not so much. I've had colleges where I've gotten standing ovations after the film from young students. And they know that abuelo and abuelo, grandma and grandpa, they don't have the voice. They just don't. They'd rather just let things be. It'll be okay. So I think it's a different kind of culture. It's a different type of aspect of what's happening here. And you're smiling back there, am I right? I'm right, yeah.
So you think this voice is going to come from the next generation?
It has to, because guess who's going to be mad? This generation, yeah. It's you college kids now. You're the ones that need to be upset. And you guys are going to be the ones taking care of my old butt when I'm, 80 years old. So, you guys need to rise up and make a change.
The bottom line is government reform, though, right? It's just, I mean, there's no other way, there's really no other logical way to think. It's what has to happen.
Right, we're a litigious society, we're a country of laws, and I think that's the only, you're never going to erase, unfortunately, I sad to say, I don't think you're never going to completely eradicate racism. We're always going to look at each other differently, always. But when there's dialogue, and we begin to understand who we are, and how we can benefit each other and live under the same umbrella called the United States. Right. So I think we're out of time, Barbara, yeah? One more minute? We'll take one more question. Ma'am, I could.
Yeah. as was mentioned in the film, the anti-immigrant sentiments have shifted over the history of the United States from one group to the other, from the Irish to the Italians to the, and you can just go on and on and on. There have been worries expressed because of these laws that there would be profiling, because there are a lot of Latinos who are here legally. Do you have any statistics on whether that's actually happening?
I can tell you it's happening statistically, no, but I can tell you it does happen. Absolutely. Oklahoma, it happens every single day. I'm not going to get asked for my papers, but I know people who do because their last name is Sanchez or Rodriguez or they have brown skin. And the tide is turning in Oklahoma. It's starting to turn already. The last legislation, there were 20, Randy Terrell submitted 20 anti-immigration bills into legislation last year. None of them went to committee because Randy Terrell's got some legal issues. He's going to be going to trial later this year for fraud and bribery. So he's got other issues. One of his cohorts submitted one bill. It went into committee, and the committee just kind of put it on a shelf. I don't know if this film had anything to do with it, but almost anywhere between 35 and 40,000 Latinos saw the film in Oklahoma. So I'm hoping that at least 6 of them wrote to their congressperson. Maybe they did. But the tide is starting to turn. Already in Oklahoma, they're now looking at Muslims and trying to create laws that are anti-Muslim. So it's already starting to change, unfortunately.
We are out of time. You're welcome to come to the Intercultural Center to continue the discussion if you have time. And let's all give a great round of